Welcome, welcome. This is just a great project. I think it incorporates everything that's in style right now, or in fad, whatever you want to call it right now. And so I'm going to walk you through and show you how to do it. A little while ago I had shown you a tie top. It was a short little top. Obviously this could be sleeveless, but a little tie top that just tied at the waist, and it was from Nordstrom's, and it was $50, and it was more complex. So I've kind of been looking around, and I found what I wanted, which was a simpler version of this little tie at the waist. So I'm going to walk you through and show you how to do this. So you can see it's just one, and all we're doing is we're going to add these ties down here. So clearly that makes it much easier. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the whys and what I'm doing and how come and all that to start with. So we're first going to talk fabrics. Obviously you want to do a stripe. Stripes again are so popular right now, they're just everywhere. And you want to have a seam down the center. We're going to do a bias stripe, and so when I'm going to lay it out, I'll show you how to do that. I started with 611. It's the pattern of the month, but a reason I had done that is if you go back to the webcast of this month, which was 611 Maggie's blouse, I had already made it for the blouse I made that I was wearing. I had already made it a V-neck, and I had already fixed the armhole and taken it from a blouse to a knit. The reason you want to use a blouse here is because when this ties, I want this extra space. If I use a knit pattern, and usually knits are smaller, then I don't get that extra fabric to tie. So that was my logic for starting with a blouse, and then I was going to just do a knit sleeve. So what I did is I took my templates, knit front, and I just put it at the shoulder seam and put it to the side seam. Y'all know how to do that. Very easy to do. I just wanted to show you. But more importantly than even all of that, I'm going to go through all the pattern changes that there are. There's only 4. I'm looking at my notes, and at the same time these notes are going to come up on screen, and they're going to stay for a little while so that you have time to kind of absorb them and see what's going on. So first I did fabric. You want a stripe, and you want a fabric where you like both sides, because you can see as it ties, you don't have to worry about what side of the fabric is showing, and you don't have to do a facing. So even though both sides of this particular fabric are not, exactly the same, you can definitely tell one is the right side, one is the back side. The stripes are knitted into the fabric rather than just being printed on top. So that's important. Some of your striped and your fabrics and stuff, you'll see that they're just stamped on top, and the back is black or white or whatever it is. So you want a stripe, and I think it's important to have stretch in both directions because it helps with the V part if I don't even have to worry about which way the stretch is going in the first place. Okay, so those are my fabric requirements. I use this green and white, and I use 2 yards because you are eating up a lot when you go to do bias, and I'll show you that layout here in just a little bit. Okay, so we've got pattern, we've got our fabric, and let's do pattern changes. So let's look at this paper for a little while, and I noticed I did all the pattern changes. Number 1, I made the neckline into a V-neck, and I showed how to do that. I showed the French curve position, 17. This is just for the one I have on. Again, you can do anything. If you have a favorite V-neck, use the one you want. The French curve is 17 at the base of the neck to 8 at the center front. Then I used the knit armhole, and I did straighten the back hem, if you'll notice there, because I wanted to make the back straight, and I'll show you that in a little bit. It's going to get hemmed before it sews to the front. So when you start your pattern, you'll notice that the side seams are equal. So what you'll want to do is add an inch to the back and make it a 1-inch hem. And you'll do that hem before you sew it to the front. But again, I'll go through that. Okay, then the only thing we're going to notice I took the grain line and I put it biased, but I put it all the way through the pattern. And the reason I did that is so that when you lay it on your stripe, you can see where the line is on the stripe at the armhole and where the line is at the stripe at center front. Notice I added a seam allowance at center front because you're going to want to put it on a seam. You're going to want to make a seam in order to get the V, and so in order to get that V, you want to have a seam allowance there. Okay, so now for the tie, what I did is I used the pattern as a base, and I showed you how to add on this extra tie at the bottom. So I drew two dotted lines, one going out from the front, not the center front, but the front of the blouse itself, which would include added seam allowance, and then a dotted line that came from the side seam base of the blouse and came out. And I'm just using those 2 points as kind of origin to show you how to place the French curve and how to, add on to the tie. Again, I'll show you that tie here in a minute, and you can do anything you want. This was just a suggestion as to what I did. Okay, so you're going to start 3 inches with your first French curve position. You're going to start 3 inches from the added seam allowance at the front of the blouse, and you can see what I did is I put the French curve positions there. 22 is at the center, and 12 is at the bottom. And then I did another one at the side seam where 22 is at the bottom and 10 was at the side seam. The ties are approximately 2 inches wide, so you can kind of pivot those French curves to get the numbers and still have the tie 2 inches wide. And then I just did a little loopy at the bottom to connect them. It could have been pointed if you want. It can be whatever you want it to be. That is all styling. But I just wanted to give you some French curve positions, how long they were, etc., to kind of give you a place to go. So those 4 changes, again, make your neckline, use your armhole, the 3/8 seam allowance to center front, and then make the tie at the bottom. Straighten out the bottom of the back of the blouse. Okay, so that's it for the pattern changes. It really won't take you long. Here are mine. All right, so here's my V-neck, there's my sleeve. This is my grain line, and notice that my grain line actually goes from this point here to this point over there, and that's so that I can see the line coming out there when I go to place it on the fabric, and I can see the line at center front. And then here's your French curve positions, and then I just connected this, okay? So that's my front. The back is just straight, no changes to that, and I use my knit sleeve. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, I want to show you on my blouse the ties. I'm going to untie them and just let them hang down so you can see where they go, kind of, and look at them, and recognize that when I go to sew, I am serging. I'm only serging around here. Yeah, I guess you wouldn't need to finish it all, except that finishing it gives it some weight. You'll find most of your knit stripes, they're pretty lightweight and they'll roll. So that serging or finishing of some kind, you could do a little zigzag, whatever you decide to do, kind of gives it some weight so that it hangs down. The sleeve, if you notice, the stripes going around, and the back, if you notice, stripes going across. You could do V in the back. All of these options are yours. You're going to get to do whatever you want. If you do a V in the back, you're going to need a little bit more fabric. I was only doing it like the one I saw, and when I saw it, I thought that's the top I want, and so I made notes of all the lines, the angles, I did it just like the top I saw. Again, see, you have a little bit of extra here so that when you go to tie it, you have that ability to bring it in and have the fullness there. If it's too tight to the body in the first place, you won't have that. So again, I hemmed the back first, and then I sewed it with the serged edge right at the bottom of the hem. So that's where you're going to add your 1 inch, fold it up, do an inch hem in the back. It'll have a nice drape. Plus, I think it looks better. I don't know, I just think it looks better if you're going to do a square bottom at the back to have the lines horizontal at the back as well. But again, your call. Okay, so what I want to do now is we're going to come up close, and I'm going to show you fabric layout so that you can really understand. It's very simple to do, and it's fun. All right, so let's take a look, and we'll come up close. All right, so here we are up close, so you can see what's going on with the fabric. Again, I'm going to show you with a ruler how to get, and I always use my little 1 inch square. You're going to take any ruler that has a 1 inch square, put it at center front, and take, and this is literally center front, whether it has a seam allowance or not, it's now center front. I'm going to call it center front. It does have a 3/8 seam allowance, but it is center front. But you're going to take a 1 inch. So there's a 1 inch and there's a 1 inch. You're going to take this side of the 1 inch and this side of the 1 inch and align that to center front. So notice what I'm doing is I'm taking that inch and putting it on center front. That is how you get bias. Notice that's following my line. Now all you need to do is start that line, and then you can continue it all the way across. But you're going to take a 1 inch square and put both of the 1 inch squares, the top of the beginning of the inch and the end of the inch, on a center front so that you can see that stripe. Okay, so once you have that, and you're going to continue it all the way across, that's how I'm going to lay it on my fabric. Because if you'll notice now, this point goes to the top of the green, and this point goes to the top of the green. Okay? Now, when I do this, this is just the way I do it. Again, I've got I want the chevrons to come down. So you're going to be much more flattering if they're actually moving up is what they're doing versus the opposite direction. There's two ways you could put it. But you want to make sure that your stripe is going from the center up to the sleeve as opposed to the opposite direction. Okay? So here I am at the top of the stripe. Now the other thing I do is I want to place this point the same both times I flip it. So I'll show you that in a minute, but those are your points of alignment. Point 1, point 2, and then notice where the center front is. It's right in the middle of a white. And I'm going to cut that all the way around. You can't cut this by folding it. You can't get the chevron by folding it. You have to do a single layer cut. So I'm going to cut it once up, and then I'm going to turn it, and when I turn it, I'm going to turn it the opposite direction, because remember, I want the stripes going up toward the armhole, up toward the garment, and I do the same thing. I put the green here, and you notice there is the white in the middle. It'll automatically do that, but I just want to make sure. Now, when you put it this way, when you start, you want to arrange it like all the way to the edge of your fabric. You want to push it off, because when you go to turn it the opposite direction, you'll see that it'll come up this way. So just fiddle with it. You've got plenty of yardage. This is plenty wide fabric, and do those two cuts. And then of course when you come in with the sleeve, it goes across and then the back goes across. So that's why I say you need 2 yards, so you'll have plenty to play with. So easy enough to put that on the stripe, continue it through, and then when you flip it over, again, just make sure the stripe is starting at the center and going up to the armhole, even when you flip it. So if I put it like this, you notice it's not going the right way. If I put it like this, it's not going the right way. So you just play with it until the stripe is going from the armhole. So you can just move it around. See, now it's going from the armhole to the center front, and that's the look I want. Okay, then again, when I'm sewing it, what I did is I just serged around here. The first thing I did is I sewed the center front to make sure the stripes are matching. And do that on a sewing machine. Do it with a large baste. So just be patient. You'll get it. But just pin them together and then, of course, sew them. And once you get it, I serged mine. You're going to do your neck edge. Sew front to back. I set in my sleeves. I serged all the way around the bottom here. So just serge around here. It's all in one now, so you're actually serging all the way. And then I hemmed the blouse back. I had set in the sleeve. I did the side seam. Of course, do your darts. But it's quick, it's easy, it's just fun, and I hope you have a great time. Happy sewing. Bye. See you next time.